It's day 36 of drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're talking about the relationship between Barker and Mooshie. If I had to explain Barker's relationship to Mooshie in 3 words, those words would be bad influence uncle. Barker is exactly the type to tell Mooshie that the word gullible is written on the ceiling and crack up laughing when the kid looks up. Barker, much like Tallery, loves to share information with Mooshie. Unlike Tallery, however, Barker's information is typically incorrect. I truly believe that Barker likes to see how much he can pull one over on Mooshie, and just how much the little mushroom will believe. Mooshie thinks Barker is incredibly interesting, even if he can't trust every word he says. Barker isn't very good with the kid as far as proper care, but he's quite the man to talk to, and Barker refuses to baby the child, and Mooshie appreciates being respected like that. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if these characters seem interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. It's day 37 of drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're drawing Tallery and Barker. Barker and Tallery are unlikely friends. They are seemingly opposite in every way, but somehow it works for the two of them. Normally, Tallery's optimism and do-the-right-thing behavior would drive Barker crazy, but there's a genuineness to Tallery that he appreciates. She's optimistic, but not to a point where she's blind to reality. She's kind, but not to a point where you can walk over her. Barker holds her in a high regard for those reasons. In turn, Tallery can see the man that Barker is trying to become. While everyone else around him sees him for his flaws, Tallery sees his effort. She can see the real him, deep down, behind all the facades and walls. It's an uncomfortable feeling for Barker, but ultimately he appreciates her and the friendship she extends to him. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if these characters seem interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. Welcome to day 38 of drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're talking about how magic works in our show as we draw Wynella and the Forager. The world of Wynella and Mooshie is very magical, but not everyone has the same level of access to that magic. Some people are born with magic, we call it inherent magic, and basically it's magic that flows through their veins instead of being harnessed by an item. Those that aren't born with magic in their veins have 2 options. They can either live their life without magic, or they can learn to use magical items. These items can come in any shape or form. Wynella is a person born without magic, but she spent her childhood learning how to harness magic through her staff. Those that don't go on to learn magic through items, like the Forager, will typically specialize in activities that are done by hand. For those born without magic, it's truly about what level of magic your lifestyle calls for. Plenty do not take the time to learn item magic, and plenty do. It's all about what you want to do in life. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if these characters seem interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. It's day 39 of drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're talking about the Forager's character as we draw the Forager and Mooshie. When Mooshie first meets the Forager, he considers her to be interesting and trustworthy enough to approach. It was for this reason that I wanted her to have a generally neutral design. From a first glance, there's nothing inherently about her that says she's going to be an antagonist. She's a bit rough around the edges, sure, but ultimately she is just some woman. This is mostly because I think at the base of her character she is not evil. She's actually quite the upstanding citizen. She does public service and puts effort into being a good steward of the land. She's actually quite the respectable individual. Mooshie doesn't get to see that side of her much. He sees it when he first reaches out in search of her help. He sees it as she explains the fascinating world of mushrooms to him. But it all goes away when she ultimately decides that he'd make a better meal than friend. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if these characters seem interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. Denim here. It's day 40 of drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we'll be talking about our main character, Wynella. The whole point of Wynella was to be average. A main character to look up to is always fun, but there's something that I really love about a main character who is just a person. My goal with Wynella was that she would be widely relatable to many people. I think most people can appreciate what it's like to just try to get through life. Most people can appreciate struggling through social interactions, whether it be 1 or 2 or every conversation you've ever had. Wynella's problems are real problems. She doesn't have to save the world, she just has to interact with the people around her. She just has to navigate a world that feels overwhelming to her, all the while figuring out how to make the next interaction a little easier than the one before. I think what makes Wynella and Mooshie so interesting is watching Wynella engage with this magical world through such a level-headed mindset. Crazy things happen to her and she just puts her head down and makes her way through it best she can. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if this character seems interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. Welcome! It's day 41 of Drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're talking about Mooshie's design. Mooshie's a fun character because of his species. Since he's a mushroom, he moves and looks different than any of the other characters in the story. When it comes to design, Mooshie is the only character who has blush that doesn't match their skin tone. I wish there was some really cool thought-out reason for why this is, but truthfully I just liked the way it looked. He also was the second character to be designed for this world, so he got away with not being the same as everyone else. Mooshie was always meant to be round and squishy because it complemented Wynella's tall and lanky design. Not to mention, what's more cute than a squishy little guy? And truly, Mooshie's number one job in this story is to be cute. Okay, really his number one job is to be the catalyst for our adventure, but his second job is to be the cutie patootie he is. Check back in tomorrow to see what character I draw next, and if this character seems interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release. It's day 42 of Drawing Wynella and Mooshie characters until we finally release our pilot. Today we're drawing Wynella and Cordance. Cordance is Wynella's mother, so conversely Wynella is Cordance's daughter. That's how those things tend to go after all. I consider their mother-daughter relationship to be very close to my relationship with my own mother. They talk freely around each other, share stories with each other, and always go to each other when something exciting happens in their life. These two may not always understand each other, but they take the time to attempt to understand. Cordance is much like my mother in the sense that she values the gift of experiences in her parenting style. She wanted to make sure Wynella was able to try as many things as possible growing up to help her develop into a capable adult, and that strategy worked. Wynella is a competent and confident individual. Not much scares her, and she's willing to give anything a go. Check back in tomorrow to see what characters I draw next. And if these characters seem interesting to you, I hope you'll take a moment to see what other fun characters and content we have cooking up as we wait for our pilot to release.